Welcome to Meganet Gaming, and today we're going to continue going through my huge backlog of games that I promised to review, focusing on those that are closed down so we can get those out of the way. And today, it is MapleStory 2. MapleStory 2 closed down quite a while ago in North America. Let's look. North America closure date. I should have May 27th, 2020 is when it closed down. Around the same time Dragon's Prophet was closing down. However, I did find a private server for that. MapleStory 2 is still open. Oh wait, never mind. I just found an article, so let's go over this article. Oh, that's just global. It is still open in, I think, China and Korea, so it's still with a VPN and signing up there. It's technically not, you're not supposed to play it, but you can still play it if you have a VPN and whatnot. So, and I made a mistake on the title card, so we'll fix this live. I am so sorry there. Closed down. I still have the date for a different game. Fixing it live. So yeah, it didn't have a very long run in North America. A little under 2 years. It's a fantasy 3D MMORPG, which deviates quite a bit from the original MapleStory. It kind of falls under the Cabal 2, the Priston Tale 2, the Acheron's Call 2, to a much lesser extent, the EverQuest 2. There's a lot of MMORPG sequels, or the hardcore long-term players of the original don't want a new game. Yet, the new game doesn't really market itself to new people that well. But is it a bad game? That's all that matters to me. I have no real connection to MapleStory or MapleStory 2. I mean the MapleStory franchise. So all I care about is it a standalone good game? Well, we'll go into that a bit. Let's go over the story first, since that's kind of the focus of this channel. And I'm going to the MapleStory2.gamepedia website to get a synopsis of the game, the story. Basically, Maple World was created by two sisters, Goddess of Light and Goddess of Darkness. Problem is, Goddess Light loved the world so much that she wouldn't let the Goddess of Darkness in. So the Goddess of Darkness lashed out and started a war. There's a long, brutal war. Goddess Light defeated the sister. But before being defeated, the Goddess of Darkness poisoned and corrupted the world. The Goddess of Light sacrificed herself to try to save the world. And what was left of her power became Empress Arrive, the Great Protector. Arrive. I'm probably mispronouncing it. I do apologize. So the Empress gathered 7 heroes to fight the darkness, but they weren't sufficient. The Empress and her 3 sages created 3 relics that had power over light, space, and time. The Lapentas and There we go. It's basically the story. Most people don't play this game for the story, but MapleStory 2 did have more of a focus on story than the first one as far as questing and really involving you in the story. So what do we have as far as character customization in MapleStory 2? You have the Archer, Assassin, Berserker, Heavy Gunner, Knight, Priest, Runeblade, Soulbinder, Striker, Thief, and Wizard. So you have 11 classes and also 9 trade skills, including mining, ranching, foresting, farming, smithing, handicrafts, alchemy, cooking, and interior design. There's PvP, there's guilds, you could fish, there's mini games, costumes were a big deal, quite a bit to do. Raids. Problem is, when this game wasn't successful, not even successful enough to appear on Nexon's financials, which is telling. Content development slowed to a crawl, and people didn't really come back. There'd be spikes in population when there was new content, and then within a month they'd drop back off. Notice that housing in this one. So, that is the story and lore. Not the deepest story and lore, but people usually don't play these games with story and lore being the focus. So let's go ahead and... I've been showing some artwork from the game on the screen. Let's go ahead and switch over to some gameplay footage. Actually like the it's isometric view for the most part. It actually controls quite well, but there are some periods of time where it's awkward trying to make a jump, or you end up missing an attack as a result of nothing more than just having difficulty aiming in the isometric perspective. So, and with the publisher, just one thing I forgot to mention, Nexon has a long history of shutting down games if they're not meeting pretty high standards. And I don't blame them. They're a large-scale corporation. They make a lot of money off mobile titles. If they're devoting resources to a mid-tier game, it's kind of pointless because they could easily devote those resources towards something else. So yeah, the controls were a bit loose. And they did have, and as far as the just basic control mechanics, it was standard MMORPG fare with the hot bar and everything. You could use a controller, which would help a little bit. But it was serviceable. As was the UI. It was a serviceable UI. No real complaints about it. It worked. For the most part, the enemy challenge is pretty easy, but there were some that were legitimately difficult. But in my experience, the ones that were legitimately difficult, I think were designed for parties, and given there wasn't that many people playing, I was stuck doing party type stuff on my own. Animation is fluid, movement's fluid. Sound effects are serviceable. It's actually a rather cohesive whole when you couple in the story, lore, art style, combat. The game itself is a serviceable game that's cohesive. There's nothing that really stands out as being out of place. But in the world of Maple, you could put in quite a bit and it not really stand out unless you're a real fan of the game. But yeah, given so far I've only really said mostly good things about the game. What was the issue with this game? Well, first off, it didn't do anything to an impressive level that would win anybody over from other MMORPGs. Especially when you got to endgame where the content was lacking. Sure, it was a fun ride to level cap, but unless you're into costumes and housing and repeating content, there really wasn't much there. And once the new content dried up, there really wasn't anything new to do. And there's a lot of MapleStory 1 players that don't want a 3D game. This isn't just a case like the other games I mentioned before where you have we have a 3D MMORPG with a sequel coming out that's also a 3D MMORPG. This is taking a side-scrolling game, and its sequel is not only an isometric 3D style game. Well, it's not technically isometric, but isometric looking game. But it's also focused on questing and story and all. It's really a similar universe, but different game altogether that wouldn't really necessarily appeal to the same crowd unless they just liked MMORPGs in general. The combat, the level design, nothing stood out as being a real selling point for this game. It really is just an average MMORPG, about as average as you can get. I had fun playing it, but I wouldn't, if it was still online, I wouldn't revisit it. So, with that being said, it is sad that this game is gone. I hope the private server scene, if they haven't already taken a crack at this one, really do try to take a crack at this one and get it back online. But it's a game that works, but it doesn't really excel at anything. Nothing was clearly broken, but nothing was that impressive. So, where do I score this? Let me get the ranking chart up. I give it a C. I almost gave it a D. I had it in a D category, but I bumped it up to a C. I did like this better than the Hammer's End because the combat was more fluid. Controls were more responsive. And it felt like a more complete game that didn't require other players to be there just to play it. But I would rather play Fungi, but really between all the C games on this list, they're all kind of clumped there together and pretty similar in quality just for different reasons. So yeah, I'm putting a 5th on the list out of 8. And If you're still in the regions where this is available, which is China and I believe South Korea, maybe some other Asian places, you can still play it. One addendum though, let me see what the download, when this was out, what was the download size? It looks like it was 10.3 gigs, which is quite sizable. But unless you're a collector or looking to do, I guess if you're in one of the nations that still have it, then you can still play it. But yeah. As for the community, I do feel your loss at losing your game. I had fun while I was there the last week. I really do see why people could like this game, but yeah, I'm giving it a C. It was an average MMORPG. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, join our Discord, and have a great day.